Welcome to the Freebird podcast, where we explore the profound journeys of individuals who have overcome life's challenges to emerge stronger and more empowered. Today, we have the absolute pleasure of hearing from Amanda Dyer, a courageous woman who has battled many challenges, alcoholism being one of them for 23 years. So welcome, Amanda. Amanda's journey into addiction began as she navigated the challenges of motherhood in a society that often normalizes drinking as a social engagement, and almost actually encourages substance abuse. So, despite the obstacles that she faced, Amanda found strength to confront her addiction and transform her life. Her story is not only a testament to the resilience of being a mother, being a woman, but also a beacon of hope for countless people, mothers and young women who may be struggling with similar battles. By sharing her experiences, Amanda has inspired many to reflect on their own behaviors, their own decisions, choices, and actions, and recognize that they are not alone, because often it feels like this is just never going to end. It feels like a dark night of the soul that just cannot be changed at all. So here we are to embrace self-realization and self-reflection and take the steps towards healing and recovery. We are honored to have Amanda with us today to share her powerful story and insights. Welcome, Amanda. Um, Thank you for coming on live. I also want to introduce a little bit later Stephanie. She's a beautiful colleague, sister, and goddess. So she's going to be joining us and also supporting the Freebird. I was going to say the Freebird Confest, but the Freebird podcast as well. So, welcome, Amanda. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me on, Mary. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are so welcome. So, did you want to just let us know a little bit about yourself and then I can ask you some questions?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Amanda, and I've had a huge transformation over the last 4 years. I had a huge awakening. One minute I was completely unconscious, and the next minute I was fully awake. And I have had many battles, dark night of the soul, and I've experienced quite a lot of challenges. And yeah, since my awakening 4 years ago, I have transformed quite a lot, and yeah, my life is completely different to what it was prior to that awakening. So yeah.
Wow, amazing. Can I ask you, first of all, kudos to you. That's incredible. Can I ask what the awakening, like how that was instigated or what the awakening was, if you feel like you want to share with us?
Yeah, I love talking about the awakenings. For me, my awakening happened during darkness, or a really challenging time in my life. I was pregnant with my third child, so I had little, spiritual awakenings before that, but nothing, very, very subtle. And then with my third pregnancy with my son, I started to look at the world very differently. Something was happening to me, very spiritual. And I was raised Catholic, so I was always really connected to Jesus and to God. But when I was pregnant with him, I lost my nan, who was my best friend. We had a really strong connection. And there was this moment when it was a few days before she died. I started to question everything. I started to question my beliefs. Who am I? I started to ask myself, this identity that I created isn't even me. So I started to question everything. And when she passed away, I think a part of me died. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I had an ego death. They call it an ego death. Um, yeah, and I started to really tap into myself as an essence, as a soul, not just the identity that I created. And I started to question things a lot more. So I was living in Melbourne at the time with my husband and my three children, and my whole family and all of my friends kind of just did the same thing throughout their lives. It was very structured, and we had this roadmap of how everything was meant to look. And I had achieved getting married, having babies, having a beautiful home, and I had this emptiness inside me, like this yearning. And yeah, I had this urge to leave the city and to go to Queensland,
Mm,
and everything just started to unfold from that moment.
mm.
So, yeah, I had this message from higher up. It was definitely a spiritual message to leave Melbourne, and I'll be supported. So it all just started to unfold from that moment.
Queensland definitely holds some significance, and the land there and the ocean. I call it the country of the gods, actually. I have a very similar calling a number of years ago, as you would know, Stephanie, as well, where I literally packed up an entire home, 3-story, huge home by the beach here in Melbourne in Bay Street. And we actually needed 3 trucks to to drive all of my stuff through to the Gold Coast. And we landed there a week later, not knowing anyone, but actually knowing that, okay, this is the guidance we're receiving. So there's quite a bit of activation happening in Queensland. Can hardly wait to get back there again. Can I ask you, Amanda, do you feel that with the passing of your beloved grandmother and questioning the identity and obviously the routine of, you know, okay, this is progress, this is goals, these are the tasks, this is what my life is supposed to look like. Do you feel that grief and the process of grief, and that deep dark night of the soul actually also had you question the importance and, the importance of life and the validity of life as well?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because I started to come to realize that it wasn't all about keeping up with the Joneses, and it wasn't all about these just this mundane life that we live on robotic mode and just so unconscious. I started to, yeah, grieve this old part of me as well that I was kind of, yeah, no, I wouldn't say I was holding on. I was ready to let go of it, but there was still a grieving process with that.
Was.
And yeah, with my nan passing, just the spiritual experiences I was having with that was profound, because she was communicating to me, and it was like she wasn't physically here anymore, but I had this deeper connection with her, and I thought, what is this? What is this? So I started to question everything.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Mm.
I love that. I love that you were curious enough to really stay awake in the process that can be quite challenging, like death, anyone dying, let alone someone close to you, can make you kind of question life. Like, why are we here? What are we here to do? What is our legacy? How do we move beyond the constructs of society and that day-to-day robotic kind of conditioning and come back into a flavor or a magic, or, a tuning into what our soul truly wants this life to look like. So I really acknowledge that for you. Tell me, Amanda, because I know that the context of this podcast is about your journey of addiction to motherhood. Can you talk to us about where your journey with alcohol began, if that's okay? Where did it begin, actually?
Yeah.
I'm sure anyone that is listening and tuning in has, and I would encourage you to remember, when did this actually begin for you? Because there's a code there, there's a story there.
Yeah,
Can you
absolutely.
tell us what the factors are that contributed to the development of this addiction throughout the years?
Yeah. Well, it was in my environment growing up. My whole life was, I was just around a lot of alcohol. I grew up in an area, well, I think most areas in the suburban areas of Melbourne, it's a hardcore drinking culture, an Aussie culture. Um, but even like where I grew up, we grew up in a European suburb, and they also like to drink too. So it was just really around me. My whole family are alcoholics. I come from a line, so my mum, my grandmother, my great grandmother. So it just kind of throughout my whole, it's an ancestral thing.
Yeah.
Um, and we it was just around every day. So my family would get home, my dad and my mum would come home from work and they would have a cask of wine or, a few beers, and it was just so normalized. And when I had quite a bit of trauma as a child, watching my mum in a DV relationship, and I didn't think it really affected me as a kid growing up and even in high school. I didn't think that it really affected me, but
So
reflecting
sorry.
back, I can see the patterns of that. And yeah, I started to drink from about 12, 13 years old, um, because I wanted to grow up. I wanted to kind of be more independent. And so, yeah, even though I went to Catholic school, I was the rebel because I think it was just because I had a pretty unstable childhood. So I was smoking cigarettes at the age of 12, and I was trying to get all my friends to do the same. So we'd go behind the church and roll up little cigarettes, and we'd bring alcohol to school and things like this in primary school. And I was the rebel, the bad influence for my friends. But I didn't have a stable childhood, so I kind of connected more with my friends' families,
Yes.
and they kind of grounded me and nurtured me in how I needed to be. And my nan was there for me as well. Nan was a really important figure in my life. But yeah, so the drinking kind of started to, I don't know, rebel.
Yeah, and
And
it's an
yeah.
interesting. I just wanted to ask you because the word rebel is so, it's actually thrown around a lot, and we almost use it to break through the conditioning of society. And yet at the same time, it's almost at the counterpart. It's almost actually, used to say, hey, it's almost used to endorse it, like basically allow and liberate you by asking you to like choose substances, etc. So tell me about your experience with the rebel.
Oh, I just wanted to go against the grain
Yeah.
always. And when I lived with my dad, it was more stable. So when I was with my mum, it was a DV toxic relationship that she was having, and it was very unsafe. I felt very, um, yeah, very unsupported and very unsafe. But when I was with my dad, it was very loving and really supportive and very grounding. But I didn't want to live with him at the same time because I wanted to rebel as well. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to go against the grain. So they would do things so structured, like always by the book. At the same time, we have dinner at this time. And I just wanted to go against that. I wanted to, yeah, kind of step outside of the boundaries and question things. And when I would question things, they would get uncomfortable, and then I would get really curious as to why. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand. So you were almost like just kind of poking the bear almost to see what type of
Totally.
reactions you're going to receive, and that would liberate you a little bit more because almost allowing you to reclaim your independence and your own sovereignty in that time for what your awareness was. So what was your relationship with alcohol as it progressed?
Um, I became the party girl,
Yeah.
uh, very young. So I started drinking every few days at the age of 13 in high
Yeah.
school. So in year seven, I was, yeah, known as that party girl. So I'd go to a lot of underage discos and listen to a lot of aggressive music. And I would lock myself in my room and I would drink or smoke weed
Yeah.
or, yeah, just hide cigarettes and things like that. So I kind of went through this really dark period at the age of 13. And it started to progress as I created this identity to kind of mask myself. So when I would go to parties, I would be the life of the party and I would always drink the boys under the table. And it grew and grew all throughout high school. And I was I'm dyslexic as well, and I've got some learning disabilities. So I always struggled at school. But I loved school because of the social aspect and because of the boys. I was obsessed with boys, and like, yeah, just being with my friends was a real social thing. Um, so yeah, it kind of grew as I started to create the identity to hide behind my trauma.
Mm, yeah, wow. And so it's incredible that over time, and a lot of this is subconscious, a lot of this is unaware. It's almost like a part of us wanting to find freedom, meaning, purpose, belonging, and identity, then creates more identities and more places and spaces to almost band-aid what's really yearning to come through, which I'm really excited because you've had that awakening a few years ago. So your soul has led you to path. So, so tell me about when you started, kind of realizing, okay, this is not so much a rebellious act of victory, and this is now a little challenging, and I'm feeling a little controlled by this, or like I don't know, I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was it for you that? At what stage did you think, okay, there's an issue here, or there's a problem, or this isn't feeling as good as it used to when I was 13, 16, 18, 20?
Mm. There was a moment that I will always remember because after high school, I got really big into the club scenes of Melbourne. So that the nightlife scene for me, I was out twice a week and I would go to recovery clubs after being at a club all night on a Saturday night. And I would, yeah, kind of just find my community and family at the clubs. So I'd walk into a club by myself and I'd be like, my family's here.
Yeah,
You're all
gotcha.
here. There was so much love on the dance floor.
Mm,
I felt like I never received that abundance of love and community like I did at the clubs. So,
which clubs
like,
did you go to?
oh, I went to Revolver.
Yeah, I'm surprised we never bumped into each other. Speaking my
Um,
language back
yeah,
then.
Cuba, Revolver, 161,
Yeah,
Billboards, like Twister, all of the clubs in Melbourne. Like we knew all of the
yeah.
security guards. Like it was a lifestyle. It was and it kind of because I started clubbing underage, so I had a fake ID and all of that. And then
Comes with everything, it kind of comes with the 13-year-old rebel that actually just is almost a queen in her own right.
yeah, and there was just no at that point in my life, there was no um fear that, I was unstoppable. I had, you know, I was resilient. Nothing got to me. And I would put myself in these situations that were really dangerous.
Mm.
And I just didn't even think about it. Like I was with boys that I didn't even know. And like I could have been yeah, I put myself into some really horrible situations and I was always safe. But yeah, it started to
Would you
grow.
say that also, like, being fearless also comes with its own vices of having no boundaries? And sometimes that sense of stress or that sense of healthy fear actually also allows you to put in place those boundaries that protect you and others.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had no boundaries. I was a people pleaser. I had really low self-worth and I used to cover myself up with a lot of makeup and yeah, that identity around the party scene was something that wasn't me, but I created it to
Fit
fit
in.
in and to be liked and to feel loved and all of those things. So yeah, it started to creep up. I remember one time because I started getting into party drugs as well. So I was taking drugs every weekend, sometimes a few times a week. And it got to the point where I couldn't socialize anymore without the drugs. And I remember one moment I was about to go out with my girlfriend, and she said, how about we just go out tonight without taking any drugs? And I said, are you serious? Like, I can't do that. And she said, let's just see how we go. We'll just have a few drinks. And we did it, but I remember it being a really big thing. And I remember really struggling that night. And I thought, this is when I've got a problem. If I can't go out without taking the drugs, like there's something seriously wrong here.
Mm,
So I
mm.
was about 22 when that happened. And then, yeah, I met my husband at 21 and he kind of grounded me. And um, I still went out a lot and things started to creep up, but um, I went through a huge depression after I met him and I got really bad anxiety and things just started to kind of come out that were I was suppressing. So
Mm,
he kind of allowed me to remove my mask a little bit. And I
yeah.
think that's when things started to
So
really get quite dark. Yeah.
well, that's it's almost like a double-edged sword. So one part is okay, you have total permission to remove the mask, and then the other part of it is, oh gosh, what's behind the mask? And I know you've used the word dark a number of times, so I'm hoping you can just share what was dark about it. And I know we're uncovering some very vulnerable conversations, so I really want to acknowledge your courage in disclosing all of this because it really does. I do believe that your story allows other people to not feel so alone because this is actually every person almost that I speak to has an addiction that they're hiding and they're ashamed to speak about it. And I just want to, yeah, continually acknowledge your voice here. So, Amanda, what would you say was dark as you were exploring what was underneath the mask?
Oh, um, I started to become suicidal and yeah, it was oh, I couldn't find the light. Couldn't find it. And I searched for it everywhere.
Mm,
And I just yeah, I couldn't even get dressed in the morning. There was a time after meeting my husband and I remember getting ready for work and just hating my job, just feeling like I just don't want to be here anymore. And yeah, it was really, really dark because I couldn't find the light and I was searching for it everywhere and I went back to church to try and find it, but I felt like I didn't fit in and I was still and I started to drink a lot more.
okay.
Um but yeah, the drinking kind of and I think the drinking made it darker. Like I thought the drinking was making it lighter.
Yes. Yes.
I thought it
Because
was helping.
it's self-medicating. It kind of it does often feel like that.
Yeah, and like I tried all the prescription drugs. Like I went to the GP. I was like, I'm struggling. I don't know what to do. And I tried all that, and that actually made me 100 times worse. Personally, I that didn't mix with me and I became worse. And then the doctor just kept giving me Valium and he didn't even ask me what was wrong. So I felt so unheard and unseen. And
Mm,
I was going there vulnerable to get support. And I just got handed a prescription and go and take that or maybe take these ones instead. Let's try you on a different dose. And then I started getting really angry because he wasn't like no one was able to sit with me in that darkness.
mm,
That was the
yeah.
problem. Like no one would sit with me in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's profound. That's profound.
Mm,
And often the not even the solution, just the compassion and the empathy and the human to human connection that's required is perhaps just holding your hand and saying nothing, just sitting in a dark room with you, actually. Is that what you think you needed or felt like you needed?
absolutely. Everyone was so uncomfortable around my darkness that I was experiencing. And no one knew how to support me. And bless them, like they didn't know, they didn't have the tools, they didn't know how to sit with that uncomfortableness. Um, but I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone about it because they would just try and I could just tell like they would get uncomfortable and then I'd shut down and then I'd just be drinking more, like just suppress, suppress.
And if
Just
you're
get
a people pleaser, even when you're in that dark space, I can imagine, and I speak from personal experience, is almost like, oh gosh, now I need to hold them in their being uncomfortable for me.
totally, you
It's
get it.
like, I don't need
It's all about you. It's about me right now.
this.
Yes, totally. Like I felt like I've always never had an opportunity to be completely vulnerable because people are uncomfortable whole like sitting with me in it. So then it becomes about, yeah, like you said, supporting them through it. And it's like, oh, I'm still not receiving anything from this.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you. I feel you and I hear you, and this is the blessing of really, the self-awareness and doing the soul work and listening and finding the skills and the tools to move beyond the, if you like, the darkness. So the darkness for you, that was suicide, not being able to socialize, not knowing who you are, probably having all your identities, you know, removed and trying to find, where do I belong? Were
Yeah.
you still, did this all just happen instantly after you met your husband, or were you still drinking? Were you still taking drugs, or did you kind of clean yourself from the drug scene and move into the alcohol scene?
Yeah, I stopped doing drugs so much. So I would do drugs sporadically. Like if I was going out to a club with friends, I'd always be the one that would be up for it.
Yeah.
Was there, I would be like, that's me, please. I want more. Um, yeah, so but the drugs kind of like fizzled out a little bit, and then the drinking was,
Replaced.
yeah, was starting, and that's when I started trying all the prescription drugs, but yeah, it kind of made me worse. Mm.
Were you looking at doing the prescription drugs? What was your outcome? Was it that you wanted to stop drinking or get better, or like what was your motivation, if you like, or intention for actually going to the doctors for your cry out for help? What was that based on?
Yeah, I wanted to get clean. There was a time where my sister, she took me in for about a week to help me get clean as well. So that was incredible that she supported me. She's always supported me. But yeah, the doctor, I went there to just feel better. I thought maybe there's something wrong with me because I heard people at the time talking about chemical imbalances and stuff like that, and I thought maybe there's something wrong with me. Um, and I wanted to get clean, so I kind of, yeah, wanted to just feel happier. Like I thought there's got to be more to life than just this. This is not it.
I hear you. And for anyone else that's listening, I I I would acknowledge you to and encourage you actually to ask questions. If you've got any questions, you want to ask us questions or ask Amanda questions, please feel free to do that. So Amanda, what then? What happened then? So nothing was
Yes.
working.
Nothing was working, so I thought that if I get married and have babies,
Yeah,
my life would be better. I
as
thought
you
if I,
do, and that's natural too.
yeah, I guess growing up with, being Catholic and, very old-fashioned baby boomer parents, and this is how we do things, and I thought that's what would make me happy. So um yeah, I got married, and then I did got married, then wanted to get pregnant straight away, but I struggled to get pregnant. I had some infertility issues, and I um I felt like I controlled everything a lot back then. I was very masculine. So I just wanted to get pregnant straight away, and so I went to the doctor, got some fertility drugs, got pregnant. Oh no, sorry, with my daughter, it just happened naturally. That's right. But yeah, with my second son, I had to have fertility drugs, but I just wanted everything structured. Like, this is how everything's got to work. It's got to roll like this. And being a Capricorn sun, I think that yeah, there is that element of me, my personality that's like wants things structured. But yeah, when I yeah, had my baby, my firstborn daughter, I then thought, well, the next thing to do is to have another baby. That's just what everyone did. Like, "Oh, you've had a baby. When's the next one?" And you were like, "Oh, yeah." So I just did things robotically without really feeling into my body. I was so disconnected from my body and my intuition. And I was just looking around me and just thinking, this is how we've got to do it.
Mm.
But it was just so disconnected from like what I truly wanted, but I just thought I was doing the right thing. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
so, no, I feel that. I feel that. And I also believe it's almost like a rite of passage. Your These actions are not lost in vain because they serve their purpose in teaching you what it's like to be in that process of, going to that system, going into that paradigm and having your babies and getting married and having the picket fence and the cat and the dog and the holiday, which actually there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually a beautiful thing. Family values and a beautiful home, safety, etc., is wonderful. But when it's not from that place of true fulfillment of I am choosing this and it's liberating you and you know that it's enhancing and adding to your life, it can almost feel like, oh, you're not present with it. It's almost has a life of its own and you're still searching for your life. So it's like all of these things happening around you, but kind of like you haven't caught up yet because they're not in alignment in that way.
I,
So I feel you. I feel like that's where a lot of us are in society actually before the awakening. So at
yeah,
what point did you kind of go, okay, like
yeah.
what was it for you in your story where you said that begun the recovery for you or that begun the awareness for you?
Well, I think for me, I think this is a lot of alcoholics might resonate with this, but things got really, really bad before I stopped. So
Okay.
yeah, this is where things got bad. And like you said, I was not present. I was so out of my body. I was just doing things on autopilot and searching outside of myself, but not being present with that rite
Wow.
of passage of being a mother. I never went through that because I held on to the party girl and I fantasized about that. But I loved being a mum, but I still didn't have that proper rite of passage. I didn't know what it was like to be in the new phase of my life as a mother. I was clinging on to the party girl, so I would drink.
Fantasy of the freedom,
The fantasy.
the
Like,
fantasy. The
yes.
seduction. I call it the seduction. It's so seducing and the lights and
So,
the
so
people and the yeah.
yeah,
You can
totally.
tell I'm speaking from personal experience here, right?
Yeah, you get it.
I get
Um,
it.
and yeah, I think that I got to my lowest point then. I think when my second child was born, he didn't sleep. He was so different compared to my daughter. And I had, yeah, so there was 2 years gap between the first two kids. And my addiction got really bad to the point where I stopped breastfeeding to drink.
Yeah.
And I made some pretty bad decisions, like choosing alcohol over my babies. Um, yeah, just really selfish decisions. And I realize now that it was the addiction. It was me
Mm.
trying my best, but when you've got an addiction, it's you become selfish because it's all about the addiction. It's not about anything else. You're always thinking about it. And yeah, I want to actually share another moment that happened
Please.
to me, another awakening of when things got really bad was after being a mother. And I remember like my friends started to get married then and their lives started to slow down and my life was still a mum, but I still was in the party scene kind of thing. And I remember my best friend got married and um I remember sitting in the limo and I said to her, "Where's the grog? Where is it?" I
Mm.
was matron of honor, and I said, "We've got to get it." Like, and she goes, "Don't worry about it." And I started to freak out, like I had a full blown panic attack. it was very embarrassing. But I remember seeing a counselor about it and everything. I was seeing a psychologist and counselors for years about my addiction. And I remember this day having a full-blown panic attack in the limousine and yelling at the driver to go to the bottle shop.
Yeah.
And I made a big scene. And my friend who was the bride, she was like, "You've just got to calm down. Like, we don't care." And I was like, "But you don't understand. This is a wedding. Like, oh, we need to have grog. Like, what is wrong with everybody?" And everyone was just looking at me. And there was this shame and embarrassment in that moment. And I thought, oof, like, not only have I stopped breastfeeding my children for this addiction, but I'm making a fool of myself because of the addiction as well. So I started to realize that people were growing up and kind of like nestling into their lives, and I was still like yearning for the fantasy. And I thought, whoa, this is a moment.
Wow,
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that story. Wow. Yeah. 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 And thank goodness that you had enough self-awareness to catch that. Even you had enough consciousness to even catch that and go, okay, this is next level now. I need to
definitely. I
bring
caught
it.
it and I did try and seek help for it. And I did try and communicate with everyone around me that I have a drinking problem.
Yeah, beautiful.
But they just said, no, you don't. That's like, oh, how many do you drink a day? And I'll be like, oh, 4, 5 glasses a day of wine. Oh, no, that's fine. And I'll be like, yeah, but it's kind of really affecting my whole psyche. Like it's taking over my life. And I think about it as soon as I wake up. Oh, no, it's all good. I'm like, oh, but you're not really listening to me. So I
Yeah.
did try.
So I can resonate with that because when I was drinking a lot as well after my first marriage, I remember because I was so together, businesswoman, entrepreneur, daughter, mother, like just there for everybody. And I remember reaching out to people and it's like, oh no, you're fine. You're fine. And in hindsight, yeah, I wasn't an alcoholic by society standards. But by my standards, there was a hook and I was controlled and I was crying out for help. And so I can really resonate with what you're saying. And for me, I would say if anyone reaches out to you for support, regardless of whether they're at that intense point of addiction or that they're actually at the very beginning point of addiction and still yearning for help and crying out for support, I would say ask some questions, look at some self-help groups, find out what they need, what they want, because it's that type of support that actually can that can really make a world of difference rather than just kind of band-aiding it or ignoring it or getting angry at it or diffusing it. Would you agree with that, Amanda?
Absolutely. And I think that also, like we were talking about before, and sitting in that darkness with your friend, or like people also then it reflects on them. So when I was saying that I think I've got an addiction, they would have this self-reflection of, oh, maybe I've got an addiction. But it was
Right.
so
Okay. So it
uncomfortable
got
that they
you.
would shut me down and I'll be like,
It
oh,
was more about them. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
yeah. So, and because I
tell
was, yeah, highly functioning and I looked like this, I'm like, don't look like an alcoholic.
no.
And I was very well presented and I
Yeah. Yeah.
highly functioning. People would be like, what are you talking about? You look great. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I didn't sleep. Yeah, anyway.
I feel you and I hear you, and I think it's a really important point to raise. And maybe we can have another conversation about, okay, can, what are some of the changes that need to happen through solutions, active listening, communication? How can we support people that are actually in that situation? I feel like it's a dialogue that needs to, be had. My question, I'm super intrigued. What was your husband's role in all of this?
Well, he
Did
started
he
drinking.
know? Was he aware of it? Would like
Yeah, so he started drinking as well. And it crept up on him as well. And he didn't know about my addiction until one day he came home from work and I had 3 children under 4 at this point. and I was really struggling. I had no family support. I had my friends lived so far away. I was all alone in the motherhood, and I felt very lonely. So I would drink at least a bottle of wine a day by myself. And I remember one day after work, he came home and he looked in the bin, in the big bin, and he was about to take the bottles, like the bin out to the front. And he looked in the bin and he said, I don't know why. I just kind of felt like I had to look in that bin. And there was just bottle after wine, like the whole bin was full of wine
Wow.
bottles
Yeah.
over the week. And he came in and he said, "Oh, do you think you're drinking a bit too much? Like, what's all this?" And I said, "Oh, no, my friend just came over and we had a play date and we had some cheese and wine, and it's not all mine, it's hers as well." And he was like, "Oh, okay." But he knew, because
Yeah,
sometimes
he
I
would.
would, yeah, he knew. But I think he didn't know what to do as well. And so yeah, I would go to different bottle shops as well. I really tried to hide it. I
What happens with addicts?
Yeah.
Because of the shame and the stigma, and also what we're feeling, I feel like that's when we realize, oh gosh, there's something going on here, because we would have no shame in exposing the truth.
Yes.
Do you know,
Yeah.
there's no shame in exposing the truth, but there is a need to hide when we do feel shame, which is your conscience
Yes.
at play.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started to hide it. Yeah. And yeah, then he started drinking a lot, and then um yeah, I can share this here. Well, yeah, our relationship got very toxic. It got really, really hard, because we were both drinking a lot. And um yeah, I then decided to go to AA in Melbourne, because every day I knew that there was an issue. Every day I would wake up and I'd say, please, God, help me break away from this addiction. And every day for 23 years, I was praying, please, someone help me, give me some guidance. And I, yeah, I just really struggled. So I went to AA. I thought, look, I'm going to go. I told my husband, I was seeing a psychologist as well. I got no help from psychology, by the way. I did
Yeah.
15 years of it, did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, then I went to AA and I cried the whole time like a baby. I had a sponsor with me and she was just holding me. She could sit with me in that darkness because she had gone through it.
Absolutely.
So she was fine to hug me
Yeah,
and sit
yeah.
with me in it. Um, without judgment. And I remember, like, all of these full-blown alcoholics, like they lost their jobs, their families, they looked homeless. And I then spoke about my story. And I felt like my story was not relevant because I didn't look like
Yeah,
an alcoholic. I
yeah.
didn't lose everything. I wasn't at that point where it was that bad, but I could see the road that it was going. It was a spiraling down. And I thought, if I don't do something, I'm going to die. Like, it got that bad that I had visions of myself spiraling down. And yeah, I didn't fit into AA, so I gave it a go. And I just continued to drink. And yeah, I continued to drink even when I moved after my spiritual awakening. Um, I had a shift in consciousness and I was more connected to my body. I came back into my body, which was extremely uncomfortable because then I had chronic pain.
Hmm.
Oh, because the pain was the
Numbed.
healing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when I came back in, I was like, oh my God, my back, my womb, shit, like this is really uncomfortable. Um, and then I started doing a lot of embodiment work and a lot of healing, energetic healing. Um, and then from there, yeah, it goes into a whole range of different things.
Yeah, I love it. I can really relate to what you're saying actually. And also just want to kind of point out there is this real stereotype to addicts that they have to like have no teeth or look homeless or look like an alcoholic, whatever that's supposed to look like. Actually, most of the addicts that I know are super switch. They're high functioning. They're
Yeah.
high functioning addicts with a lot of money, and there is something else that's missing in their lives. And so they go off and they splurge, and they're givers and they splurge on everybody else because they don't want to feel alone in their addiction. So I feel like we also need to be very mindful that let's not think that a drug addict has to look like a fully blown heroin addict at the final phases of addiction. We can look quite normal and beautiful. We can be CEOs, they're CFOs, judges, lawyers, teachers, religious ministers, actually, because the shadow has a way to hide. And we can become masterful at hiding. So, for anyone watching, just open your eyes and also ask the questions, care, really connect, build that relationship. And I think that for me, the problem in society is not so much the darkness, it's our inability to sit in the dark spaces and elevate them into the light of conscious awareness and actually create solutions and change from that place. So I just wanted to acknowledge what you were saying, so relatable. And also, can I ask, you really want to hear about so are you sober?
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
been
how long are you
sober
sober for?
almost 2 years.
Oh my gosh. I'm not going to say let's celebrate with a glass of champagne. No.
Yeah.
So celebrating you with absolute health and wealth and wisdom. Tell us how, and for all of us, really curious to hear, how did this happen?
Well, like I said, I prayed every day, praying for a miracle. And there was one day, so there's a few things. I read this book, Alan Carr, The Easy Way to Stop Smoking. I read that 15 years ago and I stopped smoking cigarettes. And I never thought in a million years I'd stop smoking cigarettes. And then I
What
read,
about the book made you stop? Sorry, just
oh,
one passage.
it does something, it rewires your brain.
Okay.
It does something. I can't put words to it, but it's like a magical book.
If you can drop the link into the book in our private group,
Yeah,
I'm going to share it with the community, if that's okay with you, Amanda.
absolutely. Alan Carr is a legend. He had a smoking addiction and an alcohol addiction, and sadly he passed away of lung cancer in the 80s, I think. But yeah, his book, The Easy Way for Women to Stop Drinking Alcohol, was amazing. It changed my whole perception on everything. And I started to realize that addiction can be the mother down the road at home with 3 children, and she looks like she's got it together, but that could be her. Or it could be the lawyer down the road who's got a perfect home on the outside and he's got a beautiful life, but he could be having an internal darkness. Like, you just don't know what people are going through. And so Alan Carr kind of like helps you see the society and how it's so accepted and it's so praised, the mummy wine culture, it's so praised. Like, she's
Mm.
a cool mum because she's got the champagne all the time and the cheese and biscuits, and it's like she's the cool mum. It's like, since when did society say that it was cool to drink poison, and for us to then go down to this spiral of addiction? Like, yeah, it starts to open your whole perception when you start reading this book. And I started having a lot of activations from the book. And so you drink when you're reading it as well. So it's not like you stop drinking as soon as you pick up the book. He wants you to drink. He wants you to consciously take a sip and to feel what it's doing to your body. And
Yeah,
it's
wow.
actually doing nothing for you except for, yeah, creating more pain and disease. Like, it's doing nothing, and creating more anxiety, because you think that it's calming down your nerves and anxiety, but in fact it's actually keeping you stuck in a prison on this
Absolutely.
hamster wheel. Yeah, so reading the book helped, and also praying. And one day I just woke up while I was reading the book, because it took me a long time to read the book as well. I paced myself. And one day I was like, oh my God, this is the day. And it was from spirit
Yeah.
saying, you can do this now. And I was like, really? Are you for real? This is a 23-year addiction. I'd never thought. And then I had this clairaudient and clairvoyant vision of my grandma, who was an alcoholic. And she came through and she showed me what I would look like on my deathbed. And I was all yellow and I was all inflamed. And she goes, Amanda, if you keep going on like this, you're going to end up in the hospital and you're going to look like this. And it was this, yeah, I was like, I had liver cancer and I was looking at myself in the future. And I remember that moment of her coming through in the spiritual world and showing me this vision was something that really, I can't explain it because it's so
Wow.
supernatural.
And I'm feeling you though. I can,
Yeah, it was
I can.
beautiful. It was a lot of, there was a lot of love in that awakening and a lot of softness and surrender. I let go and I was able to let go and fully soften into the addiction and kind of like realize that I'm at my peak. It was really bad at that point. It got really, really bad to the point where I could not think about anything else but the alcohol. And then there was this moment of like this awakening where I had clarity and it was okay to surrender into like let go of it. And that day I went to a party, a house party, thinking the old me would be there with the bottle of wine and everyone was drinking around me. This day that I decided to
Yeah,
stop
wow.
and I'm drinking my water and I'm having the best time of my life because I was authentic. I was more authentic and comfortable with my beautiful friends. I didn't need the mask. I was able to leave whenever I felt like, you know what, I'm getting a bit tired, I'm going to go. I didn't have to stay there and be uncomfortable. Like in the past, I would drink more if I'm uncomfortable in a social environment. But like if I don't want to be somewhere now, I'll listen to my body and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to go. I'm not going to continue to stay here and drink another bottle. It's time for me to leave and listen to my body and to my essence. Yeah.
I love that for you. I
Yeah.
love that for you. That's absolute celebrations for your ability on the day to actually decide that, okay, this is the day, and then to actually be presented with almost like the test as well of, okay, well, this is the sliding door of what your life looked like. And you're like, yeah, okay, cool. No, I made this decision. And so from that day, you've been clean.
Clean, clean since that day. I have no desire
I was
any.
about to ask you that. What happened to the desire?
It just went like I can't believe it. It was my husband can't believe it. Everyone around me is like, you of all people, like what is happening? So yeah, I have no desire. I have to admit though, I so in my conscious life, no desire. In my unconscious, in my dreams, I would have nightmares of drinking. And I think a lot of people with addictions might be able to relate to that who
Absolutely.
have become sober or stopped substance abuse, that you might have dreams in the astral world where you are drinking and being tempted by the beast. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, but that's stopped now. So
yeah.
I
So
have no
how long
drink
did the nightmares go on for, Amanda?
about a year.
Yeah, okay. So for those that are unaware, there are traces in the subconscious, in your dream state, the REM state, PTSD as well, and just kind of like coming back like flashbacks. Um, I don't have the scientific evidence with me, but that they do go away.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
it depends on the timeline, but they do eventually go away. And there's night sweats as well, little bit of anxiety that kind of comes through, but the willingness to move beyond that cycle of control and move beyond the demons, if you like, the beast or whatever you want to call that temptation, is your victory. I would say that this is really the initiation of the warrior. And
Mm.
for me, the warrior is an archetype that's reflected through the mother. And I feel that the mother bear, the protector, the connector, the nurturer is really the warrior. And that's your rite of passage. We were speaking about that right at the very beginning, Amanda, where it's like, I haven't had the rite of passage. You've gifted yourself the rite of passage of actually going through all of these stages, phases, and cycles to then come, as a mother. So no, I've got two more questions for you because I'm aware of time. But how do you feel now as a mum, and what advice would you have to mums who are struggling with being that mother connected to their child and the fantasy world?
Oh, God. I have so much to say about that. I'll try to not go on about it. Um, so, oh, let's see, where could I begin? The rite of passage is really important. Um, just having that, letting go of the identity and stepping into a new phase. And if we look at the seasons, summer, autumn, winter, spring, we're constantly evolving and changing. We're never going to stay the young maiden. We're always going to change. And we're so conditioned to stay in the young maiden phase and to stay young and youthful and beautiful and playful, but it's part of nature to go through the autumn and the winter phase as well, which is the crone, winter crone. So being okay to step through that rite of passage and let go of those old identities, because your identity is not you, that your personality is not you. It's just an impression that you've received from your environment that you've created to keep safe. But you don't need to hold on to those identities. So I think having a support system around you is really important. And we're so conditioned in our society to do it all alone. And I think that's really sad. And I feel like something has to change. Um, yeah, and just like supporting each other.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a big one, looking after each other and having each other's backs and coming back to community in the spirit of the team. It's almost like the movement away from this is all about me, or that, very self-centered type of narcissistic almost. I don't like to use that word, but what that word is rooted in is the I can't see beyond myself, to releasing the veil and actually expanding and extending and realizing, hey, we are a part of a whole, and we are actually gonna be stronger if we've got each other's backs, and looking out for the weaklings and the children and the elders, and kind of supporting the whole. I love that, Amanda. I will also say, because I know that some of the audience here is faced with mental health challenges, anxiety. You spoke about panic attacks, the dark night of the soul, etc. And you also spoke about psychology, and I won't go. I won't share too much of my thoughts about the clinical approach, because there is a
Mhm.
time, there is a space for that. However, I honestly encourage you to look at holistic practices, look at trauma-informed care, look at community intervention, find a way outside the very cold clinical approach, and also understand that you are beyond your identity. So that was my key point. I went on a tangent there, and I'm like, oh, that was my So if you're being diagnosed with something, understand why that diagnosis is in place, right? The nature of that diagnosis, but also be really careful not to box yourself into the identity that you are ill, that you are mentally ill, that you have got this condition that will never go away. This is teaching you something, and you can move through it or learn to live with it beyond the identity. And I really feel like you've honed in on that point today, Amanda.
Mm.
Is there anything else that you would like to share? Is there anything that you would like to give, anything you would like to say or share before we?
Yeah, I find that, yeah, a lot of the being in psychology and counseling, it was just dealing with the surface. And it was, for me personally, there was a root cause of the anxiety, depression, and addiction. Because with addiction, there was also lust and fantasy. It all kind of comes from that sacral
Yeah.
chakra of the waters.
Yeah.
Um,
Base.
and yeah, getting to the root cause was what helped. I mean, there were so many different layers to it for me with coming clean, but definitely getting to the root cause and realizing that all of my back pain as well, because when I started to come back into my body, I had all this physical pain. I needed spinal surgery, which is a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But
Hit us up with that.
yeah, I'll tell you all about that, the chronic pain, because the doctors said you need surgery, and I knew, my soul knew, no, I don't. I know this is coming from something deeper, and it was trauma. It was to do with my emotional trauma that I had experienced as a child. So all of that lower back pain, and all of the addiction as well, like they just were so quick to give me the pills, but not to listen to me. So, yeah, there are other ways to go around it. And I think that this is the only way. The only way to go through it is to connect back into your body, get to the root cause, and to connect with spirit,
I love
uh,
it. I love it.
and your identity, and just the self-reflecting and observing yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. There has been some epic conversations we've had today. I really want to acknowledge again, I know I have already, your courage. I want to celebrate your sobriety and your sovereignty that is just so mirrored in your reclamation of this transformation. I'm using big words, but I really, this is not a and I speak from personal experience, this is the dark night of the soul. This is a journey for warriors to this overcoming, learning how to live with recovery, being a mum of 3 kids, being married, etc., and actually standing tall, um, learning somatic, learning how to work through trauma, being a mum, and actually listening to spirit, I feel are very essential. So well done. I'm really proud of you. I also want to mention that One Love Community Care, our philosophy here is all about trauma-informed practices. We are advocating within the government systems and the allied health clinical systems, as well as the spaces where people are really kind of being challenged by mental health and addiction. We're really advocating for trauma-informed practice and process, community intervention, which is, as you would know, Amanda, and you've mentioned, it's a way to belong. It's a way to come together as a team and belong. And holistic therapies, and that includes somatic therapy, coming back into your body and actually listening to your intuition. So if you want to reach out, feel free to do so at www.olcc.au. Amanda, I would love to have you on here again, speaking a little deeper about just things, and the pain that comes up and support. And I also really want to know what your life looks like now. So through sobriety, what changes. So perhaps we could schedule another time where we can discuss that.
Absolutely, because life keeps getting better and better now that I'm
Amazing.
sober.
Well,
Yeah.
if you can sum it up in a sentence, because I feel like I'm intrigued and maybe a few people are really wanting to hear what's your life like now?
I'm more authentic. I listen to my body and my intuition. I feel much more in balance and in harmony with nature and with myself and with my family. My family's changed. Like this has affected not only me, but it's affected my children and my grandchildren. It's big, big work. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. It's almost like the ripple of hope and faith and recovery and transformation just kind of influences the whole.
Ah, everyone, the
It
community.
influences everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I'm really, really excited for you. Thank you so much for coming, for being a voice, for sharing your story, and have a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful life. And I'm sure we'll connect very soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie, as well for tuning in. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. If you've got any questions for Amanda, please send them through, and we will drop a link in to her social media as well. If you want to reach out to her personally, if she welcomes that, then you can also do that. All right, see you later.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you.